posters up in our hallway.
Oh, man. Hey, welcome aboard. It's the A Game. I'm Rob Acampora from the Shared Universe Studios, where all the Chotskys are just hanging out over here. And Liz and I were just talking before we even got started. She's just soaking it all in. She's enjoying all of this. I love it.
Give me all that Star Wars stuff. I want all the Star Wars stuff.
There's plenty of that and more. I'll have to give you the visual tour after we're done.
Most
By
definitely.
the way, to set up this episode of the A Game, I got to give big props to Bill Timoney, who, from All My Children, was my guest 2 weeks ago. Some of the stories he told were just absolutely fantastic. And Liz, I will tell you, I had no idea. He literally just reaches out and says, I want to get you a guest. I said, sure, what the heck? I have no problem with this. And he goes, I'm going to get you Liz Vassey. And I'm like going, okay, why do I know that name? And I'm like going, and I knew All My Children, but then I'm like, oh, wait a minute. You're talking about the girl from CSI? Hello?
I've known Bill since I was a fetus. I met him when I was 16 years old. I was 16 years old in New York City working on All My Children, and he was one of my very first friends there. And I mean, you talked to him. I fell in love with him immediately. My family fell in love with him, and we've been friends through it all. I mean, I adore the guy. So yeah, he's great.
I love how you put that, though. I've known him since I was a fetus.
I mean, my God, yeah, 16 years old. My mom and I moved from Tampa, Florida to New York City so that I could work on the soap. And we lived in an apartment that I swear is probably half the size of whatever room you're sitting in now. Like, our beds were head to head. And
oh, jeez.
Yeah, it was crazy culture shock in a good way. We both went we went apeshit for New York. But yeah, Bill was he was great. He was a great way into the city. He was very.
And obviously, the friendship continues how many decades later? I mean, that's amazing.
Oh, no, I hate him now. Would that be so awkward? No, we don't speak.
That would be very awkward. I mean, like, you agreed to do this for what then? What? Well, I'm happy here. By the way, I'm talking to Liz Vassey. Yeah, you may remember her. Christian, give me photo number 2. Let's really go back to the days of All My Children, if you've got it ready there, bud. Give him a second. He'll get it. But we're going to go back to the time where about 1988 is when you got first started there. There we go. There's that young girl, which was probably another lifetime ago, but Emily Ann Sago was your character, and you were a big deal for during that 4-year stretch. It's like your character just kept developing. But the weird thing that I look back on with the soap world is that wasn't your character before you got the character. Oh, it's like she developed from childhood, and then suddenly she sprouted into adulthood overnight.
Look, you know what? There are weird things that happen in soaps. You can get on a bus and die, which is like the worst. Like you get on a soap and you immediately. I remember my mom would carefully flip through all the scripts to make sure that my character wasn't getting on a bus and dying. So that's one thing that can happen on a soap. The other thing that can happen on a soap is you can go up to an attic and disappear. Mm-hmm. Like you go up and never come back. I think my character. I think she went up to an attic at the age of 9, and then she came back at 16, and it was like 3 months later. So she went up as one young actress at 9, came down as me at 16, and I think I've got this right. My biological father was a pimp on the show. My biological mother was a prostitute. My adoptive mother was also a prostitute, and my adoptive father was a gambler.
And then on top of all that, you get married, you have issues, trust issues, and then all of a sudden, you're locked away in an insane asylum.
Yeah, because I tried to kill somebody because she tried to take my man. And I fell down some stairs. That's the other thing. So I got pregnant, but it was a hysterical pregnancy. And incidentally, not so funny. And then I fell down the stairs, and then I tried to stab her and was put into an insane asylum. Yeah. Where I guess I still am to this day. I don't know what happened to poor Emily Ann after that.
Yeah, you see, that raises an interesting question with all the buzz going on about ABC doing the reboot of All My Children, tentative title, of course, Pine Valley. I mean, it would be interesting if they could bring your character out from the asylum and see what could happen.
It's interesting. I've actually segued into writing in the last probably 5, 6 years. I wrote an episode of CSI, and I'm sure we'll get into this later, but I've been writing so much. I want to write on the show. Like, I want to go and write on that show. I actually know some of the people behind it, and I wrote them and I said, I want to write on it, but also I sing. I was like, I'll come back as Emily Ann if I can sing at a bar. If you make me some, like, the Pine Valley Lounge singer or something, I'm all in. Then I'll do it.
You know what? In a remarkably beautiful way, you are uniquely qualified to write this because, again, having the time there, you understand the pacing, you understand probably where they're going to try to go with Pine Valley. So, I mean, isn't this a no-brainer? Am I missing something here?
Well, I mean, I think it would be a delightful match. I wouldn't have to do as much research. I know the characters. So, we'll see. I'm just glad that they're doing it because I think it's really cool that all the characters can come back, or a lot of the characters can come back. And I think a lot of people, the soap, more than almost anything else that I've ever done, when people watched it, they would come up to me and act like I was family because I was in their living room every single day. And I think they still feel that way about a lot of the characters. I mean, Katie McLean and I are very good friends. She played Dixon. We go out for coffee and, like, people just go nuts because she's been on, I think, 3 huge soaps at this point.
This is true, yeah.
So, it's a different kind of sort of very myopic specific fame. But man, it's they're intense. Those fans are intense.
It's funny because this is the 3rd time I've gone down the All My Children route. Obviously with Phil. Before that, there was Tim Carr, who played Colton in 2000 and 2001. And all 3 of you basically said the same thing about the audience and the fans. Yeah. I mean, there's something very unique about these fans. I mean, they do feel like, okay, I've come into their world now. It's like you are kind of that family. And they're very protective, but in a good way. They want to see you succeed. They want to see your characters continue to have some life if possible.
Yeah, they really do. And I mean, people ask me about it. It's been so many years and there's still people, either they will recognize me or they'll find out that I was on it and they have so many questions. And I mean, they're just also kind of fascinated by how soaps work because everybody, I guess it's pretty much general knowledge. Like you shoot, at least when I was on it, you shoot a script a day. I mean, it was sort of interesting because it was inversely proportional to the amount of work that you do once you work on primetime. And, I started by having to learn 25, 30 pages a day for a big storyline on the soap. I came out here and I would shoot maybe 2 pages a day for something in primetime. I was like, how is this getting easier?
Right.
But no, soaps are the real deal. They're tough. They're really tough to work on.
When you look back on the list, do you look at that and say, oh my God, that was like my undergraduate work. I'm 16, I'm getting all this experience and knowledge, and no matter what, it's going to prepare me for the next gig.
Yeah, I did. I mean, I was a musical theater geek growing up, so I had done 50 musicals by the time I got on the soap. And wow. It's all I wanted to do. I wanted to be performing on stage for a lot of reasons. I mean, mostly I had E. coli poisoning when I was 2 years old. Oh. I came out of the hospital and I was very shy when I got out of the hospital. And the way that I found my voice was literally to get on stage and sing. So it was deep seated, it was a thing that I did, not for fame, not for attention. It just made me feel comfortable for some reason. I loved it. So when I got on the soap, it was training to have a camera in my face, training to actually not break into song. It was excellent training it was a great segue into a lot of television work after that. Like, I think it's the best training ground that an actor could ask for.
It is a shame that we're down to 4 soaps now. I mean, I know the world has changed. I remember about a year ago, ABC was kind of complaining about the ratings on Good Morning America, the 3rd hour. And that's sort of when the first rumor was thinking, maybe we'll bring back a soap. Maybe we'll do that. And now we're getting Pine Valley in primetime.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing I'm kind of curious about, how you're going to condense all of that into 1 hour once a week. I think that's got to be the great challenge with this.
Well, I have no idea how they're going to do it. But I do think it's a very smart idea. And I think particularly now where we are, I think escapism is extremely important. And I think to be able to escape to Pine Valley where it's ideal. I mean, ironically, it's escapism that you're watching characters whose fathers are pimps and prostitutes and they're throwing glasses and breaking them up against the wall. And, but it is so obviously fantasy. And I think that's what a lot of people craving right now.
I agree with that. I agree with that 1,000% on that. Liz Vassey here on the A Game, a veteran of the soaps, and also a veteran from, you know what? Give me photo number 4, Christian. This lady did 5 seasons on a little show called CSI. Yeah, a little show. When you got on the show, I mean, that had to be a little intimidating, I would think, because it's like the number 2 show at that point you came on. Only American Idol's got better ratings than CSI when you joined the show.
Well, yeah.
Go ahead, please.
No, it was interesting because a couple things. First of all, when you work out here and you're doing stuff in prime time, if you go up for a series regular job normally during a pilot season, like
right.
You read for a pilot, they call you back to read for producers, they call you back to read for the studio, they make you sign your contract when it gets down to 3 or 4 of you. You then read for the network. I mean, it's an intense sort of gauntlet that you have to run to get a role. Right. And I did that 15 times in one pilot season. So by the time CSI came around, because I finally got a pilot and then it didn't get picked up. That's the other thing nobody knows. Like, you come out here, you shoot 10 pilots in a row and nobody ever sees them.
That's true.
Like a really expensive home movie collection that you give to your mom and nobody else sees it. And then I got the audition for CSI, and it was a recurring role originally for maybe 3 episodes. So I just went in and read for the producers, and it was not a matter of calling me back or reading for the studio or anything. So I thought, you know, I'll go and do a couple episodes. It'll be fun.
Right.
To be perfectly honest, I'd never seen the show before. And so I started, and I was lucky enough to work with Mark on my first day. So if you're going to join a machine of a show where everybody's been a team for, I think, in season 6, it should always be with Mark, because she is so down to earth and we're very good friends to this day. There are not enough nice words in the English for this woman. So, you know, I didn't have time to feel nervous. I just sort of got on set with her. And plus, you have to learn all the scientific jargon. Most of my mind was just going, collapse the schematic of the HDV, right? Collapse the schematic of the HDV, collapse. So, you know, it doesn't leave you a lot of time to have feelings.
Right. It's like going, I'm a theater major. I wasn't trying to be a doctor or a coroner. Why? Come on.
I mean, the stuff I know now is like, I'll watch real life crime shows with my husband, and I'll pause it and go, that can't happen. And I'll say, why? And I'll be like, because I'm telling you right now that there is a theory that you leave enough behind of your skin cells that basically, by this theory, he would have left in the mask something where they could get the DNA. I mean, it's ridiculous. You just,
so in translation, your husband and you don't watch many of those shows anymore together.
Well, he's oddly fascinated by it, because I went to do a ride along in Vegas when I was on CSI, and I wrote an episode, and they sent me to Vegas to do a ride along. And I think he was jealous because I called him the first day. I was like, oh my God. So I went and I swabbed a guy's mouth, and I went into a robbery, and I took fingerprints, and they put some of my prints like in the system, and it was so oddly flattering. I was so happy my prints were good enough to go in the system. And then the next day he wasn't so jealous because I watched 3 autopsies. And he was like, you can do that. Like, the autopsies are fine. But yeah, so it was a crazy job. You do learn some nuts and things.
Like I said, it has to be something where it must be fun just to pull it out at parties and just kind of go, oh, you're never going to believe what happened at my work today.
Yeah. Well, that's what's funny about the real CSIs. I mean, their stories are just insane. And they tell them like it's nothing, you know, like they just tell them like, of course, this is what happened every single day. Like, this is what I do. And then you work with the MEs during the autopsies. And that's kind of crazy too, because this is just what they do for a living. And they have the darkest senses of humor because they have to cope with what they're doing. It was fascinating to see that. They don't dress the same way they dress on the TV show. That was a little bit different.
Liz Vassey here on the A Game. And during that time on CSI, there was that transition period. And I know the fans were kind of wondering how this was going to work. Obviously, going from Peterson and bringing in Lawrence Fishburne. And the funny thing is, when I look back on it, and I look at William Peterson as somebody who I remember from the film Manhunter, the Michael Mann movie. And it just seemed to me after that, after all these years of him doing what he was doing, this was the role he was meant to play. Because that movie to me was like the closest thing he came to Manhunter was here at CSI. So to see him leave, I'm sure like you saw it, but the fans was like, oh, But I mean, come on, Lawrence Fishburne is such an incredible actor to begin with. But I get the feeling there was still that. How's the timing going to go? How is this going to work? I mean, did you kind of sense that? Did you miss a beat, or did you feel like no, having those episodes with him together kind of made the transition easier?
First of all, we had some warning. I mean, we knew that Billy was thinking about leaving a while before he did, so we had some time to get used to the idea. So first of all, there was that, and then also he went away for I think 4 episodes at one point, and Liev Schreiber came on, and so Liev was on. He was terrific. So that was kind of nice to see what it felt like to have a different captain of the team, and then. Yeah, we missed Billy terribly. But then the other thing is he'd been with the show for so long by that point, and he wanted to go do theater in Chicago. So you go, well, let the dude go be happy. So he went to go back to Chicago, and they actually put a little plaque on the floor of our lab, and it was in commemoration of him, which was kind of great. So every time we walked, we would see this little plaque that they put there for Billy. And then Fishburne came on. He was great. The only reason I was ever pissed at him the entire time I worked with him is because he had a photographic memory, which really sucked because he could look at this stuff and just look at it once and then just do this monologue. And then you go, are you kidding me? Are you really? Like, come on, Morpheus. And he was so funny and so dear. So, it's just sort of the nature of the beast. We all grew up in the circus. And so you just get used to having different people in the ring with you. And it is what it is. But I felt very lucky that everybody was very kind in that show. Like, it was a really kind, easy set.
And looking back on your 5 seasons, every season you were there, the show stayed in the top 10, which has got to be a satisfying feeling. Like every year is like, and then ironically, you left and then the show went.
I mean, really, do we want to call it a coincidence?
I don't think it is a coincidence.
I think actually, with streaming and with everything else, I think that, and I hope I'm wrong, but CSI feels like one of the last juggernauts. Feels like one of the last shows.
You're very right. I think you're very right on that.
Yeah, now everything is niche programming, and everything on the streaming stations is like 10 episodes or 8 episodes a season. This was 22 a season, and it was like, it was network television, and it was great. I feel really fortunate to have been part of that. Like, I think Grey's Anatomy is the one that's left now, right? That's
right.
The big shiny show.
Yeah, but I think now, because you hit it on the head with streaming and with all the other options that are out there. A show that's going to get 26 million viewers, I don't think it's going to happen again, unless it's a special event. Super Bowl, that'll get 90, 100 million, but a television series to get 25 to 28 million, not going to happen again. I don't think it'll ever happen again.
Yeah, it's a really interesting thing. So the business has just sort of changed. I say sort of changed a lot, and I feel really confident that I got to be a part of that. It existed. And also, I mean, the other thing about CSI, like, you go to Vegas, they have a CSI experience that you go into in one of the casinos where you go in. I don't know if it's still there, but they had it for a long time. And it was sort of a museum exhibit, and it was interactive, and you could solve crimes. And, I ride on airplanes out of the country, and they have CSI reruns while I'm on the airplane. And I left it a while ago. It just keeps on ticking.
It's great stuff. It's absolutely great stuff. Liz Vassey here on the A Game. All right. We talked about streaming. I'm going to say there's a couple things I want to talk about because you've been involved in some streaming shows, which we'll get into a little bit later. But I want to get into the movie. And the movie that you're promoting, I think that is Still 7, Christian, if you could put that up. And this is a documentary film. You shot this in 2017. It's called The Human Race. And there are 6 fascinating stories that are going on here. But 2 of them really stood out to me. I don't want to give away too much because I want people to go out, go to Amazon, rent this. It is worth your time, especially if you're a runner. If you're a runner, this is definitely something you want to take part in. But one of the people that I was just like, and I knew the name Kathleen Switzer for a reason. And then you realize, wait a minute, she won like one of the marathons. She was like one of the first. And I think if I remember correctly, there's only like 9 women that competed the first time she did in 1974 when she won it. And then to find out more about her backstory that you told, I thought, that was interesting. You put that right at the beginning. And I think that was a really smart play because it's like it grabbed your attention immediately to get Switzer's story. Some people knew about it. Some people didn't know how intense her story was.
Yeah, she has always been an icon to me, both as a runner and as a feminist. She is the first woman to run the Boston Marathon, to run a marathon as a bibbed entry. And basically, the story for people that don't know, she would sign her name KV Switzer. And so when she signed up for the marathon, and she had an inkling that maybe they would think it was a dude. She signed up as KV Switzer. And so she got her form to do it. She ran it with a boyfriend who was this huge football player. Well, first she had to get a coach. So she got a coach, and the coach was like, I can't coach you, you're a woman. Because we're talking the 1960s here, and she was told that as a woman, if you run long distance, you will grow hair on your chest and your uterus will fall out. This, again, is in the 60s. So her coach was basically saying, I don't want to be responsible for that. And she kept pestering him and said, please, please, please help me. He said, okay, if you run 20 miles with me, I'll see how you do. And so they went way past 20 miles. He passed out. She didn't. He's like, I'll coach you. So he coached her, and then she was running the marathon, and the guy in charge of the marathon director, actually came out when he saw a woman running it, and the pictures of this, tried to push her out of the race.
As a matter of fact, if I can, I think it's photo 11, Christian, if you can pull that up. I think we actually have the photo of that. Yeah.
There we go.
I mean, that, honestly, when I saw that, Liz, I was like, I didn't know that story, that she was trying to be physically removed from this race because they weren't allowing a woman to run. And then they changed the rules after that to make it just a male race for the longest time, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, she fought like hell to change that and to get women in the Olympics. And I mean, she now has 261 Fearless, which 261 was for, and 261 Fearless is a nonprofit that helps women run, and they help women run in countries where women have never been allowed to run before. And they get groups together so that people feel safe, and they empower women to run. And she's just an exceptional human being. And I felt so fortunate. It was funny because I just cold emailed her, because at a certain point after being in this business for 11 trillion years, you're just impervious to no. So you're like, I don't care. What is she going to do that I haven't already heard? So you type an email, and she answered me. And she said, she said, I'm sponsored by Humana. Do you want to get them on board? And I said, interestingly enough, I'm trading calls with them. So, because they're interested in helping out. So I called Humana, and they said, do you want to get Catherine Switzer on board? I was like, interestingly enough, I'm trading calls with her. And so it all ended up sort of meshing. And she said, yeah, do you want to come watch me at age 70 run the New York Marathon? And she ran the New York City Marathon, and I ran it the next year with my husband. And I she kicked my ass. At 70 years old, she kicked my ass, and she kicked my ass while stopping for interviews. Like she'll look at her time and go, yeah, but I stopped for interviews. And I look at my time and I'm like, well, I finished. I mean, she's extraordinary.
Yeah, and it is an extraordinary story, and there's like 6 extraordinary stories going on here. And probably the other one that really blew me away, Kristen, if I can have, I think it's, give me either photo 10 or 12. Because, okay, now hold that shot right there for a second. This is an elevated push-up by 84-year-old Elaine Briger. 84. I'm going to say something. I recently am working with a personal trainer during the pandemic because I'm not going to my gym. And he sets up something in his garage, and my buddy Steve's been great about it. He has my legs elevated. I'm having these 2 claws that I got my hands on and trying to do an elevated push-up. I'm lucky if I can do 3. This woman is doing way more than 3. She's 84. I'm like, A, I feel weak. B, I think I pulled something just watching this. But it's amazing. This woman's just in incredible shape. Yeah. And again, she owes it all to running.
Well, and the whole documentary is about runners and athletes over the age of 50. And the reason I did it was because, well, it was a lot of reasons actually, but my mom passed away, and I was using running as a way to deal with grief. And I am a long distance runner, and it's become sacred to me. I mean, it's like brushing my teeth. It's a daily activity for me. I run, and it really helped. And I started thinking, when am I going to have to quit this? Like, at what age do you hang up your shoes and maybe just play pinochle or bridge or something? Like, I wanted an age. So I started looking online, and I found all these people running marathons or 10Ks or 5Ks, what have you. like at 60, 70, 80, 90. And I thought, this is really interesting because A, I didn't know it was possible. B, the more research I did, and I did a lot, it's good for you. C, it doesn't hurt your knees the way people think it did. If you have a pre-existing condition, it can. So I'm not saying that everybody has perfect knees when they're running, but usually, not always, but usually, it's because they played football before or had a skiing accident. But there have been studies, in fact, one that we talk about in the documentary, where runners' knees, they compared 500 runners, 500 non-runners over a 20-year period, and the runners' knees were stronger. So it was really fascinating to me what happens to the human body as you keep pushing it as you get older. And then the last reason was I live in Los Angeles, where I think it's where ageism was invented, I think. And I thought, you know what? I want to do something to put a little light in the world, because, you know, let's face it, we've had some darkness, and I thought I want to do something that is happy, because you can only complain about it so much without trying to put something that makes people smile and inspires people out in the world. And so I just wanted people to feel hope more than anything else, and I find it incredibly hopeful to watch people well beyond my age doing things I can't even do. So it was a joy to make from start to finish.
It's one of those films that was, like you said, an inspiration based on your mom. Your husband was involved with the camera work. I thought that was great. So this really was, it brought your mom and your husband in even closer during a time where it's like, oh, okay, so running's my passion. And then you learn more about all this, and it just becomes this labor of love. And I'm glad that we're able to kind of shed some light on it for people. Amazon Prime, you can find it there. Find it on the streaming series. It's worth your money. It's worth your time. It's an hour and 28 minutes, and you're going to be thoroughly entertained and educated. And trust me, we've got a little bit more to talk about on that when I get into random shots. Excuse me. This is the segment where I go, okay, questions can come from anywhere. Usually I have a shot of something, but I didn't come prepared with my alcohol, so I am going to go winging it. I'm just, all right. All right, so this is going to tie, and it's funny because you were talking about music before. There is a music question, and I was like, oh, wow, I was on top of this. But to start off, because we were talking about streaming, so true or false, were you a part of one of the first web series, of a series that maybe a network had passed on television for?
Apparently, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we shot the pilot of a show called Nikki and Nora in 2004. And I played one half of a lesbian couple, and we were cops, which I know sounds very like, please, but it wasn't. It was very good. I was very proud of it. I'm very proud of it. I was particularly proud of it because in 2004, it's not like there were a lot of gay and lesbian leads. So I thought it was incredibly cool to be able to be a part of that. And then I thought it was very telling that people took that pilot, put it online, and it sort of exploded online, which A, made me happy because I thought that's good people are seeing it, but it also was sad because I thought obviously people aren't feeling represented if they're watching a pilot from 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. So, you know, that also really ratcheted up my awareness of some systemic disparity between how things are portrayed on television and what I can do about it as a writer. But we then did a web series based on it, and it was fun because we'd all really loved each other when we were shooting it in New Orleans, and particularly Nancy Lee Myatt, who created it, is still, I just was texting with her before I got on with you. So, you know, it was great to go back and celebrate and sort of see where these women had gone over the years, you know, after the pilot was over.
And here's the interesting, I think, misconception people have about some of these web series. A lot of them don't have a lot of big budget. You know, this is sort of, it has to be more of a passion project, or like you said, here's a show that, you know, okay, it got discovered, so to speak, on the web, and it kind of took off a little bit. And that's got to feel good because you sit there and say, we were onto something. It was unfortunate that nobody had the chance to kind of take the leap of faith with us. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's another thing that you just sort of get used to, and it's not easy. Like, you do things sometimes that I think, I did a series called Maximum Bob that was based on an Elmore Leonard novel, and it came on, I think that in 1998. And Barry Sonnenfeld from Men in Black directed it, and it was an incredible cast. Beau Bridges was the lead. Alex Ganza was the writer, who then went on to do Homeland. I mean, was a stellar group of people, and probably the thing that I'm proudest to have worked on. Like, I think all of us look at that show and just go, wow. We only did 6 episodes. And now I look at that show, and it's so twisted and funny and dark and weird and set in Florida with with gators that chase after. But it was Elmore Leonard. And I look at it now and go, that would have done 5 seasons on Amazon. It's just that I've always sort of been drawn to shows, at least for like a 10-year period of my career. I was drawn to shows that were a little twisted, a little weird, like The Tick, things that weren't quite what networks were putting on the air. And now I look at it and go, oh, they were good. They just were a little ahead of their time, which, it doesn't take away the joy that I have for being a part of them, because they still are special and a lot of them still have fans. So it's gratifying.
You set me up on The Tick, because that was my next one. Number 2, better version of The Tick, the one that you were in on Fox with Patrick Warburton. And could I have photo number 5 on that? That one.
Yeah.
Or photo number 6, please. This version that came out on Amazon Prime, which you were a part of just within the last year or 2.
Yeah, that's actually me. That's my claw coming out of the sewer. I played.
Yes.
Yeah, I was Lobster Achilles.
Lobster Achilles.
That, honestly, well, that was just fun because I'd never really done voiceover before. And so they called me and they said, do you want to be a part of this new one? And I said, yeah, but I can't go to Brooklyn. I'm writing something. I'm here. I'm working on this other thing. And they said, no, you just got to go to voice school. And so I got to be, 6'8" lobster. And I actually found myself, before I went into record it, going, what does a lobster sound like? I was thinking, how the hell do you come up with a voice? It just make your voice sound, I don't know, like wet. What do you do? So but it was really fun, and I got to jump around and they make these sounds like you get in fights, and so you're standing there alone in a booth going, and I thought, I feel 9 years old. It was great. It was so much fun. If you're going to ask me my favorite between the two, I'm going to have an obvious allegiance to the one that I was on first. Like, I love my crew, Patrick and David and Nestor. And I feel like that obviously led the way to the next one. So that was, it was my family for a while. And because I've never met the cast of the other one face to face. I met them for a Zoom table read that we did, but I was in a booth doing a lobster thing. So I was on set with them. I thought the show was terrific, but yeah, I loved the one that I did as Captain Liberty. It was so much fun.
Wasn't there a reunion that happened recently? If I was reading about it, you guys did something for charity for the food banks of LA and New York.
Yep, all of us. The cartoon cast and the cast of the one that I was in originally, and then the Amazon cast. And we all did table reads of different episodes and we all intermingled and did different roles on all of the different shows. And Ben Adley was there, who created everything, and it was so much fun and so cool to just meet everybody else. That particularly for me, for the Amazon series, since I was technically on it, but I hadn't met them, so it was really nice to meet some of these people. But it was great. It was just, Ben Edlund is sort of like, he I guess he'd hate me for saying this because it takes away some cool, but he's just joy and love, and he's there's a reason he created the Tick. He's like the ultimate display of love wins, and so you feel that, and the fact that all of us, hell, Peter, who played the Tick in the last version, he did these table reads, I think, at midnight. He was in London, so it was midnight his time, and I don't know any other person besides Ben Edlund who could command that, All of us were like, yes, we'll do it for you. So it was a fun experience.
Random Shots with Liz Vassey. Okay, now we get back to when you were talking about music before. You were a theater, you like to sing. There's a photo number 1, Christian. Now, this is a very young Liz Vassey, I think. Now, I'm going to notice the shirt. That is the Rolling Stones on there, is that not?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
As a music fan, look at your albums, look at your downloads, 3 essential bands that's in your collection.
Oh, what a great question. That's great. Well, I have to say the Beatles, which I know is technically, everybody says choose between the Beatles and the Stones. I don't know why you would have to say that, because it never really made much sense to me.
You know what, Liz, here's how I look at it. We're about the same age, and I think that was sort of the thing when I was growing up. I heard the same argument from my father. It was sort of like, for whatever reason, that generation had to pick an allegiance. You can choose the Beatles, you can choose the Stones, you can't have both. And I'm like, I go, why not?
Yeah, I like them both. I really do. If we're talking absolute essential,
Yes.
I have to have the Beatles, and I have to have all the Beatles. Like I am ape shit for the Beatles. I absolutely love them. I'd also say, which is going to sound like a weird choice, but I love Green Day. I really love Green Day.
Nothing wrong with that.
Well, it's just like, I look at their sort of, we're also thinking if it's essential, they have so much. So like got music for days and days and days. I also am a big fan of the Foo Fighters, mostly because I just love him. Like if I could meet, I want to meet him so badly. Like we saw this competition he has with the little girl, right? And I mean, what a kind, wonderful man. So I would pick those three for essential music, and then what I'm going to do is end this, and then I'm going to think, oh my God, I forgot to say this, I forgot to say this. But those are three big ones for me.
Three very good ones, and yeah, I mean David Grohl. It's like in this day and age in 2021. This is as close to a rock god as we get.
Yeah,
Grohl is that guy.
Yeah,
no question.
And just a good man. You can just tell he's a good man. Watching the movies, like he has it all. He has it all done perfectly. Like he's the rock star with this soul, and I really love him. I smile every time I see him. So yeah. I think he's great. Now I'm also thinking like, okay, but the musical theater person in me, then it's like, well, then Lin-Manuel is genius, and
yes,
I would want everything he's ever created. Yeah,
amen to that.
A lot of music that I'd want to take along.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna go back to the running aspect of your life. The ultimate athletic challenge, in your opinion, would it be the Ironman Triathlon or the Hard Rock 100?
Having done neither,
but you're familiar with one.
Yeah.
And teaser, the Hard Rock 100 is a part of a film, which is called The Human Race, which you can rent right now on Amazon.com or after this podcast is over. Thank you.
Thank you. My cat's saying hello.
As we have a visitor. Hi.
The cat wants some time. This is Watson. I know people that have done both, and I filmed the Hard Rock. I'm gonna go for the Hard Rock because of the altitude, because they're not kidding around. I mean, it's so high, and then you go so high, come back down, go so high again, and I'm nuts. So I went running in the morning while I was there. Like I would wake up early in the morning and go for a run before we go out and shoot, and I would say 10 to 12 minutes was added onto my run time every day because the altitude was so exhausting. So the other thing about the Hard Rock that really gets me is that you have to finish it within 48 hours or it's like you were never there.
Challenge, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that's another thing, because it is 100 miles at crazy nuts altitude. And to think about, first of all, you have to get picked in a lottery to do it, which is funny. Like people pay to go do this. And then they go through this experience and you get nothing. Like your name isn't even on anything if you don't finish it within a certain period of time, which has this sort of inherent cruelty to it that it makes me think it's both emotionally harder and perhaps physically harder. Although I suck at swimming, so triathlon, I wouldn't be able to pull that off. Maybe I could do the Hard Rock. But see, the other thing about the Hard Rock is they don't give you directions. Like they have little flags in place, but you run it for 48 hours. So my question is, if you're out there in the dead night, like, how do you not just go wandering off a mountain in Colorado? It just is astounding to me that these people actually make it to the end.
Yeah. And that's where I say you need to watch this movie just to see the course that they run. We're not going to give away too much, but I will say this. When you're starting at a level of almost 8,000 feet above sea level, if I remember correctly from watching the film, it was about 14.5 above sea level at its peak.
Yeah.
So that already, like you said, I'm not surprised it's adding on to time because, again, your lungs are trying to handle this altitude. And that had to be just like a swift kick in the chest when times you're like, wait a minute, why is this harder?
Yeah. And the guy that we were following, Mike Arrett, was, I believe, when he ran at 56, 57. And so he also explained that your body digests food differently at that altitude. And so it becomes also the whole science of it. He had to figure out what he could digest easily because you need, I think, it's in the doc, but I think it's 200 calories to 300 calories every hour. Like you have to feed, it's not even that you're hungry. You have to feed your body, your machine. And he had to figure out different things that his body could digest at that high of an altitude to get the energy to him quickly. So he had a whole scientific, he showed us. He was organized as hell. And so it was just fascinating to me how much work went into actually doing this.
Yeah. And again, another reason to really check out the film when you get a chance. Random Shots with Liz Vassey. I'm going back to the 90s for you on this, because looking on IMDb, if I counted correctly, you did like 26 guest shots on a variety of different shows and some of the top shows of the 90s. Think back, pick one that stands out. Can you pick one? I mean, that's kind of hard because you were on ranging from 90210 to Married with Children. I mean, the list goes on and on and on.
Well, 90210 was interesting because I was friends with Jason before I did it. So
yeah, you were in Calendar Girl, right? You were in the movie with Jason, right?
Yeah, I was. I think it was basically cut out. That was my first experience of shooting something, and you go to the screening and you're like, oh, that's so weird. They both spelled my name wrong in the credits, and I have no lines. Like, it's like,
yeah, thanks, people. That was great. Thanks.
I'm
so proud.
So glamorous. But no, I mean, I had fun there because Jason, well, then he was also in True Calling. So I've worked with him 3 times and he's just great. Yeah, God. Trying to think all the guest spots. It was a lot of guest spots. I had a great time on Wings. That was really fun. I had a great time on a show called Love and War because Annie Potts is perhaps one of the nicest human beings on the planet. And I just remember her being so kind. But then, like people in my family that were so excited that I was on Home Improvement. Married with Children was funny. I don't know. It's also weird because I think back and being a guest star is just a weird experience. It's like that perpetual feeling of going into the lunchroom, when you're in junior high and you're looking for the table, like you are in somebody else's.
Yes.
Family. So I much preferred being a regular and having my own family. It was a more comfortable experience than going in and being like, hey, here for a week. But
good seeing everybody. I'm glad I was here.
Yeah, exactly. You won't remember me in 2 weeks, but I had fun. And it was funny. And then I was just talking about this with a friend of mine recently. I saw a picture of Joe Polnicek from Facts of Life. I was obsessed with that and her. I loved her on the show because I was like that growing up. Like I didn't play with dolls and I loved cars and and so and my friend was like, well, you were Joe Polnicek in the 90s. And I said, what do you mean? And she was like, well, on Pigsty, you were a superintendent, and then you were a mechanic on Brotherly Love, and you always had a smudge of dirt on your face, and you wore overalls. I was like, oh my God, I was Joe Polnicek. I mean, with all due respect to Nancy McKeon, because she is Joe Polnicek, but
right, of course.
Yeah, but I was nice homage.
Yeah. 2 more I got. One I'm doing on the fly because you were talking about it at the beginning about Star Wars. So I got to fire a Star Wars question. As far as characters, who's the one that stands out in your Star Wars mind?
Oh, well, I got a story.
Cool.
So, I mean, Harrison Ford, Han Solo. I think very possibly he's how as a kid growing up, I knew I was a straight human being because I thought, I had it bad for Harrison Ford. So Han Solo, and then Indiana Jones, and just anything he's ever done. So my husband wins this award. My husband is like a badass camera operator. He's fantastic. And he just won a.
And if I can interrupt for a second to give David a plug, I was reading. He did some camera work for the upcoming Top Gun Maverick movie, did he not?
He's done everything. I mean, like he's working on Avatar now. He's done. He worked on Spider-Man. He worked on Seven. He worked on. He's like a rock star cameraman. And I met him on set actually and picked him up, and we got married 6 months after we met. But that's a different story. So he wins this award, and he asked me to present it to him. Okay. So I did. I had this speech to do. Well, then I heard that Harrison Ford is also winning an award that night, and I was like, "Oh my god! So Harrison Ford was going to be there. So then they switched the schedule around, and I'm in the audience, and I'm getting ready to do my speech that I wrote for my husband. It's like a 5-minute speech. It's a whole thing.
Right.
So Harrison Ford gets up to win his award and gives a speech. Then they call me up to do mine. I was like, I'm following
Harrison Ford.
Which I then got up and I was like, I only agreed to do this if I could follow Harrison Ford. Nevertheless, she persisted. So I got up and did the speech. And I'd written about falling in love with David and what he is to me and what he is in general. And my friend was sitting near Harrison Ford. And he said, who's she? And I was like, oh. So then I met him afterwards, and he came up and he complimented me on my speech. And so I have these pictures where I'm pretty sure I'm 5 or 6 inches off of the ground floating, where he's talking to me and complimenting me on a speech I wrote for my husband. And it was just so magic. And yeah, so that was an answer to your Star Wars question. Han Solo. Han Solo for the win.
Yeah, obviously for the win and $300. Absolutely.
Yeah.
One last question. And Neurosis to a T, what is this about? And have I seen your T-shirts out there?
Well, yeah, you probably have in one form or another. I started it with Kristen Bauer, who was on True Blood. She's an actress who's been on everything. She is just stunning, like almost 6 feet tall, blonde goddess of a woman, and we've been friends forever. And we were very drunk one night, and we
the greatest ideas always come when you're drunk.
A lot of martinis. And we decided that we were both dating at the time and we were having not a great time. And we thought, wouldn't it be great if everybody wore T-shirts with their neuroses just written on the T-shirt? Like, I use big words to impress people, or emotionally unavailable men rock. Or if we could just lead with our neuroses and just be open books, maybe we would skip a lot of time and, you know, get to the good stuff. So we each made a T-shirt. Mine was emotionally unavailable men rock. And hers was, as a joke, my boyfriend's wife hates me. And so we wore these shirts to a premiere. And then we started getting emails with people going, where can we get these shirts? So
right.
We were like, you should start a company. So we started a company. And then we were like Lucy and Ethel in the Chocolate Factory, because then we started getting orders. And we were like, we don't know what we're doing. So we had to learn everything about running a company, packing these shirts, shipping the shirts, all of it. And then we got in, I believe, 90 stores all over the United States, which sounds like a bigger deal than it is, because to keep up with the demand, we had to buy so many T-shirts. So I've had people say to me, you must have made a mint. I was like, no, we were treading water, because we just, you know, every time we shipped some out, the order would come in, we'd order some more. So we ended up selling it off after a couple years because we both got busy with other things. But what happened was, I think we helped, not that we were responsible, but we helped to bring about the whole thing with T-shirts, with the writing and the sort of neurotic sayings on them. Suddenly we started seeing them everywhere. We talked to our lawyer and said, what can we do? And he was like, well, yeah, you can't own sentences. So basically, you've probably seen some form of our shirt somewhere. Like, we would even see copies to the point where, like, mine was emotionally unavailable in rock, and you'd see something like men who are needy don't rock, or something that was a little
right.
I know where you got that, but what are you going to do? But yeah, it was just funny. Like, we had an office, we had everything. And we packed everything by ourselves. One day I lost my wedding ring, couldn't figure out where it was, realized it fell into one of the boxes. I had to open up all the boxes because I almost sent it to Minnesota. So it was a very hands-on experience.
Honey, listen, we need to take a vacation. Where are we going? Minnesota. What?
It'll be great. We're going to 6937 Linwood Avenue.
I got some B&B. No, well, yeah, Airbnb. There we go.
Yeah, it was nuts. But it was fun, just because it was so different from anything either of us had done before. So, you know, we'd go to the office, we'd type up the orders, we took care of everything. And then it got old. Right.
See, now, if you were a few years later, this would have been like, hi, I'm Liz, and we won $150,000 for 20% of our company.
Yeah. See, I'm telling you, we thought of it too early is what happened. Yeah. This is what happened.
But the question is, what shark would you want in on the deal?
I have never seen the show.
Okay. Well, I can't go there.
Isn't that weird? Because I knew what you meant, but I've never seen the show. And it's so strange. I tend to watch shows. I mean, there's a lot of streaming shows that I'm watching now on time, but I watch everything else late. Like, I watched X-Files 10 years after it was off the air. So I'm the ass walking around going, David Duchovny's really good, you guys. Like, he's really good. Like, he's a really good actor. They're like, yeah, we knew that a decade ago.
Right.
Yeah, but I mean, you guys, West Wing is amazing. I'm late on everything.
I am glad you were not late on this, because once again, Bill Timoney, if you were watching this, thank you for hooking me up with an incredibly talented person. This was fantastic. Definitely, when you got something else coming out, we'll spend some time. We'll talk about that. In the meantime, let me plug it one more time. The Human Race is available on Amazon Prime and all those streaming services. Fascinating look at 6 stories and about running. And thank you, Christian, for putting the banner up. You're never too old to start. Great tagline, by the way. Worth your time. You will enjoy it. Milady, I hope to see you in something soon. I know the pandemic is slowing everything down in Hollywood a little bit, so hopefully there may be something maybe in the next 6 months. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, it's coming back. We're coming back. It's starting to open back up again. So I'll let you know.
I appreciate that. Liz Vassey, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And that's the A game for this week. Check in with me next week and find out my times on Facebook and also on my YouTube channel. Until then, enjoy your weekend ahead. Take care.